everyone, and thank you for joining us at the ever-improving No Soundbites Allowed podcast. My name is Michael Vasquez. We thank you for joining us in this adventure of describing the politics that go on in our nation on a personal and local level as often as possible, giving you, the audience, more than just 30 seconds to understand what's going on in our nation. We look forward to joining you as we go. Just sit back, enjoy the ride. Please remember, if you like the episodes, like it, share it, let other people know, and if you can, please donate, even if it's $2, even if it's $5, because it all makes a difference. We thank you, and here we go. Hello, everybody, and thank you. I'm here. This is Michael Voss, the Dragon of the Southern Tier, your favorite host at the podcast of No Soundbites Allowed. We're happy to be here with you. In fact, I'm very excited because today we have with us in studio one of our favorite guests, Assemblywoman Donna Lupardo, who we've spoken to many times over the years, and we're happy to have her here again with us.
Hi, happy to be here.
All right, and we're glad to hear you. Now, do you mind if I call you Donna?
Not at all.
I know we've known each other, but always want to be respectful. And we've got an opportunity to speak with you today because, well, there's a lot of things you've been working on. Mm-hmm. In fact, before I even get to that, I do want to take a moment. Were you over at the river yesterday?
Yes, I was.
Okay. And it was great. I liked the performance. It was really nice.
It was fabulous. I had the opportunity to be above the orchestra for a little while and got some footage of the entire situation and how many people were there. It was really impressive. It's nice to see the city coming back like this.
Definitely. Did anyone get a count? I mean, I was there and I was eyeballing it. I think I did a Facebook Live of some of the crowd that was there. It looked like easily 10,000 people or more.
Oh, I had no way of knowing, but certainly in the thousands, no question about it.
Oh, yeah. It was beautiful. And the fireworks at the end, I don't know how much we paid for that. It was worth it.
Definitely.
It was a great fireworks display, and everyone loved it. Mm-hmm. And I know that they're working on improving the sound and improving the entire event for everyone.
Yes, I think probably when the orchestra was floating in the water, perhaps the sound carried better than when it was on the shore. The sound may have been bouncing off the building, and so I think next year clearly they'll have to have some speakers up on the bridge. Yeah. It was fine.
Oh, well, there's always, it's been a long time since they've done that. So
definitely.
There's always that little give and take and a little bit of work that has to be done. Mm-hmm. So I did want to mention that. And I also wanted to congratulate you. I know that we've just gone through petition season. You have no challengers this year. And so automatically you've won and been reelected. So congratulations.
Well, not so fast. There's a possibility that someone on the independent line could emerge. Actually, they have until August to try to do that.
Yes, and I know the Libertarian, his name is Sean Szymanski. Mm-hmm. He's with the Libertarian Party, and I shouldn't have said it that way because I have interviewed him, and I know he's running, and he's looking to get onto the ticket.
And we have to respect that process.
I do, and I apologize to him. I forgot for a second because I know he's out getting the petitions now, and that's why I didn't remember seeing him on the ballot.
Not a problem.
No disrespect meant to you, Sean. I know you're listening. But at the same time, I did want to also go into all the things that you are working on. And you've been working on a lot of things, as always. Mm-hmm. I know, actually, recently, just today, I was hearing about was it Social Security? Medicare, excuse me. Medicare that you've been working on. And there's been some new development with that.
Well, the reason I got involved is I chair the Committee on Aging for the State Assembly, and we oversee all policy and funding that goes to our elderly citizens of New York State. And the reason I am concerned about getting the word out about Medicare, even though it's a federal program, is that we spend a lot of time focusing on fraud and abuse. And we wanted to make sure that when seniors got those envelopes, that they opened them and realized it was a legitimate new card they were receiving from Medicare. We wanted to make sure they were expecting it. It was going to be coming in the next couple of months. And the value of the new card is that their Social Security number is taken off of it, which helps protect their security. So we spent so much time educating the community about ways to avoid scams. We wanted to certainly make sure they knew this was not a scam. The potential scam, however, is if somebody calls and says, "We're sending you your new Medicare card. Please confirm your Social Security with me." So there are some scams coming for people who are scamming around this piece of mail. So they get it, it's free, they don't have to do anything, just open the envelope, destroy their old card, and use their new card for Medicare.
Yeah, I had not known that was a scam that they had going out, nor did I know about it.
It's starting now. Of course, any opportunity to get a vulnerable senior, or honestly, so many people are vulnerable to these phone calls, the grandmother, grandfather scheme.
Yeah, that's been going on for a while now.
And all those. But this is legit, and it's a good thing. It protects their security.
Yeah. I would have actually been surprised if I got a new card and it didn't have my number on it. I would have questioned it myself.
Are you that old?
I'm 50 now.
Oh, well, you got to be 65 for this.
Oh, good. I got a little more time.
I should say, not me so much, but yes, you got a while.
We're all getting up there. We're definitely getting up there. So it's always good to have an eye out for these things.
That's right.
So I know that was one of the things that you've been working on recently. And I wanted to, I'm always happy to have that announcement for the public, and that's always an important thing. I know there was a couple of other things, though, a couple of bills that you've been working on, and there was a couple of them that stood out to me, and I wanted to take a moment to talk about them, because most people don't notice, there's all the bill numbers. Mm-hmm. They're not familiar with that, or they don't recognize the name of a bill or what it does. So it's always great to be able to explain that in a little more depth than usually the 30 seconds that gets on the news. And let's start off actually with one of your favorite, which is with the hemp.
Yes.
And Bill A10195. Just so if someone wants to look it up at the State Assembly, you can go online and you'll be able to see the bill.
Well, actually, I'm going to give you a new bill number on that one.
But it did change, yes.
Yes, it's A10826. Now, sometimes when you're getting toward the end of the session and you've come to an agreement on a bill, it is easier just to file a new bill, depending on the time frame. So that's what we wound up having to do with this bill. Senator Omar and I work very closely together. He's my Senate partner from the Elmira area. And so, I'm sorry I interrupted you, but it's 10826.
10826. No, it's always good to have an update, and I try to be as up to date as possible. But and that's one of the things. I'm sure people will look at it and not realize that,
correct. And
then they're going, "Well, what happened with that bill I was trying to follow?" Was there any substantial change to the bill?
No, we were just really trying to find a way to simply define cannabis in the health code, making it crystal clear that it does not apply to industrial hemp. So we're defining cannabis oil, with all of what you would expect to go into it, except when it's derived from industrial hemp. So you're probably wondering, why do you need to redefine the definition of marijuana in the public health law to protect industrial hemp? Well, this all started when a student was arrested in New York City for selling out of a wellness store a CBD product. CBD is one of the derivatives from industrial hemp that people use in creams, and of course, Binghamton University studying for its medicinal applications.
Right.
And the student was arrested, and the prosecutor cited that definition in the public health law and said, well, there's nothing in the definition on cannabis that makes it clear to us that it doesn't also apply to cannabidiol and industrial hemp. So we were pretty much just covering our bases.
It's a little bit of a loophole that you're closing, essentially.
Well, we didn't even realize we needed to, because our State Department of Agriculture and Markets has a very well thought out regulatory framework for industrial hemp, for growing, processing, manufacturing, transporting, all of it. No one expected that some, I want to say, rogue police officer, someone would come along and not understand that New York has a very well-developed program, and we're very tolerant of industrial hemp. Didn't understand, saw CBD, assumed it was marijuana, and then they cited that particular component of the public health law, and we said, all right, no problem. The last version got us the same place, but it was a little complicated. Some people in criminal justice wanted us to make it even easier to understand that that's what this is.
Okay, so that's what the change was.
But in the meantime, if you don't mind me adding.
Sure, absolutely.
This year we are issuing 115 licenses to grow industrial hemp across the state of New York. And 50 of them are to grow a particular type of hemp, which produces cannabidiol only now 3 states are allowing this production. Kentucky, New York, and I believe the state of Washington or Oregon. I always get those confused. But New York is really very forward-thinking, and we're doing some of the most important public research in the country on the use of this component for medicine at the pharmacy school. We're really proud of that.
And there should be a big difference noted for a lot of people. I think they make a confusion of the cannabis versus marijuana, and the difference there being marijuana is more the drug smoking you is something that's smoked, whereas the cannabis is industrial. There's more applications like medicine and clothing and such.
Just like anything, the cannabis plant has different variations. Some variations people can smoke, and there's a THC component in it, and some are just, as you mentioned, industrial workhorse, just plants that can be used for everything from fiber to seeds that go into food products to cosmetics to building materials. So there are those types of cannabis plants, and those are legal in New York State if you're growing with a permit and you're processing under a registration. So it's
right, and they have almost none of the THC, and that's the main ingredient that causes the high that a lot of people
you could smoke
use it for.
Industrial hemp all week long, and it would get you no place if you were trying to get high.
Exactly. And I just wanted to clarify, because I know a lot of people get confused between why are those two terms and what do they mean, really?
Well, I tell you what, I passed my first hemp bill several years ago, and it was a challenge, but I had to educate my colleagues one by one. Senator Ashar wasn't there at the time, but Senator Romero worked very hard to get this accomplished for us. So, yeah, now we're all behind it, 100%.
Actually, and it was 100%. It was 130. The vote on the hemp bill, on the definition bill, A10826, was actually 136-0. No one voted against it. It looks like there was 1 or 2 people who weren't there to take the vote, but otherwise everyone was for it.
Yeah, they ran out of time in the Senate. It was on the docket, but as you know, the politics got a little bit complicated for the New York State Senate toward the end of session, and many good bills that they were planning to pass, they ran out of time.
Sure. And I know they're going to take up a bunch of bills early in the new session, and this will probably be on there.
Absolutely. We don't want to risk anyone else getting arrested.
Actually, yeah, I see it on the docket as, for the Senate, S08072-C, in case anyone wants to look that up. And again, if you look it up on the Assembly website, you will see the link to it so you can see the bill, just in case anyone wants to look at that. So that's a good one. Is it too hot?
No.
Oh, okay. I know the house is a little stuffy.
It's warm outside.
Yeah.
He asked me that because I'm waving my papers as a fan.
I'm used to it always being hot, so people often tell me, the house is too hot. And the studio's in my house, so I don't notice it usually, so I try to be as careful as I can with that.
Okay.
Well, let's also talk about another bill that I thought is very interesting, and a lot of people don't hear about it with students and SUNY. That would be Bill A09801, which is also called the Student Journalist Free Speech Act. And this one I caught a lot of attention because I also do a broadcast with the SUNY Binghamton SUNY Broome Republicans. Sorry. There's a couple of these I do. But that was one of the groups, and it came up because we've talked to a lot of journalists, and I know they're redoing their student paper. And it kind of struck me because you would expect that student journalists, like any journalist, would have the freedom to write and cover whatever issue they want to. And apparently, that's not the case.
That's not the case. That's why there's a movement across the country called New Voices to support student journalism and the First Amendment. I think where this thing went wrong is back in 1969, there was a Supreme Court decision. It was called Tinker versus Des Moines. And that particular decision affirmed that students, and this is right out of the decision, do not shed their constitutional rights to freedom of speech or expression at the schoolhouse gate. And so that is exactly what you would think, that they would have that ability. But school administrators raised another case back in 1988 to the Supreme Court, And they backtrack a little bit by saying, well, if they're raising legitimate, what they called pedagogical concerns, that maybe they could exercise some control. This leaves things wide open for interpretation at this point. And many school districts and many advocates, I should say, within school districts have asked states to confirm that original, what they call Tinker Standard. And we've met with a bunch of school districts and a bunch of administrators, and they've looked at our bill, and they're comfortable, not everyone, but they're comfortable with the fact that it provides a series of guidelines that, of course, you can exercise editorial control of the student newspaper if there's defamatory speech, for example, invasion of privacy, encouraging people to break the law. But we have seen, and I hate to put it this way, but some rather thin-skinned administrators really micro-meddling with students' journalistic interests, which we really object to.
Actually, I saw that. I am aware of that happening at SUNY Broome with their newspaper, which was, they were actually supposed to have 2 editions come out because they were just starting it back up. They had planned to have 2, possibly 3 editions within the first semester here that just ended. But because of administration delays on a certain one of the articles and not allowing it to go forward, they lost all their time. They were only able to publish once. So it kind of falls into that same scenario you're speaking about. And again, also why we were so interested about this is because... I
should add one thing that
Sure.
just really you'd find interesting. The original bill that we sent, again, another bill with Senator Amara and I, the original bill included universities, colleges, and K through 12. And when we met with every stakeholder, this SUNY representative said, would you mind taking out public colleges and universities, because many of our institutions have even more freedoms allowed. A lot of our universities have a completely hands-off on the school newspaper. They don't even really look at it at all.
Right.
And they were afraid that our bill was going to be a step back. So they want to work with us in the next session to create a model bill for just the universities that even goes further than this. To my surprise, they are very, very open to it. That's not to say that certain schools are exercising controls that I think down the road will be revisited when this bill becomes law regarding the public higher education. As far as the K through 12, those administrators asked us if we wouldn't mind please just doing middle and high schools. It didn't make sense for the kindergartners, particularly. Right. He also asked us to, make some amendments that we're in the process of working on. This often is a multi-year endeavor once you go down this road, so that everyone is comfortable with it, as you can imagine. But when we hear stories coming across the country, I think, I'm not sure, it might have been in Kansas, a school newspaper discovered that the new principal of the high school had no degree in education or no college education. She had completely misrepresented herself. Ooh. And there have been other instances where stories have emerged out of good, hard-nosed student journalism that the public needs to know about. And in many cases, they've been, their voices have been squashed. And
that's terrible because, I can think of last year, there was the whole, hashtag Y2K or 2016 Stop White People at Binghamton University, which was a very big story, got national coverage, and that was from the college newspaper. Mm-hmm. And if there were any kind of suppression, that story wouldn't have gotten out, and it was an important story.
We just want to make it clear, if you're going to try to intervene, it better be based on something legitimate, and the bill is very, very prescriptive. It really describes the areas that they can surely get involved, but many places they really just need to let the process play out. Especially in this day and age, we want to encourage journalism. We don't want to discourage people from their natural curiosity.
Absolutely, and that's why I'm so happy to hear about this, and people should know about it, especially students in the schools, because it's so essential. It's our freedom of press, our part of the First Amendment, and I'm glad, and I thank you for taking this up on an issue that many people were not aware of, or it slipped past them, or was assumed, like I had, that freedom was there and it isn't. So we thank you for that. And definitely want to follow this bill. And if people want to help support about that bill, I don't know if there's a public discussion or announcement phase to this.
Well, we've been discussing it, but if they're interested in the general topic, New Voices, that group has a website and a Twitter account, and they're basically cataloging the efforts going on across the state. I think 13 states have put in place something to basically enshrine in state law that Tinker standard, that the students have this freedom of speech.
Okay, and I'll make sure that I'll include the New Voices link onto the page when we do publish this, so that people will be able to find that. So I thank you for that. And people can just look at when you go to hit the to the blog, to the podcast, you'll be able to see that.
And there's also a Facebook, New Voices New York.
New Voices New York.
Specifically for New York's activities, and New Voices New NY is the Twitter account.
Okay, perfect. I thank you for that. So, so that we were talking about journalism, and I know that's an interesting subject since I do it a lot myself. But that also brings us to another topic that I like to speak about. And I know that you've had a very strong position on it as well in terms of the Second Amendment. And there's always new bills and more bills to discuss on that. But one that recently has been getting a lot of attention, or at least I'm trying to get it to get a lot of attention, is A11148, which is one of the 5 red flag bills currently either in some form of the state legislature, and this has gone through the Assembly. Now, I see that, and there's been 2 red flag bills. Yes. I see that you had voted for both of them. I also know that you're, especially compared to your peers in the Democratic Party, you're one of the standout supporters of the Second Amendment, and you're very well known for that. But I saw that you had voted for this bill, and just so people have an understanding, very loosely, or as simply as I can put it, the red flag bill essentially says that if a person is determined to be a danger to themselves or the community, then they can have a court can issue a warrant to take away that firearm, and then that person will go into the next year and have the opportunity to prove themselves innocent of that and to be able to get their firearms back. There is also a component of this that, because New York is a reporting state, Child Protective Services would have to be notified if there are any children in the household and be removed according to its standard. And I'm giving a very basic description of the bill. There are some other details. There's 5 versions, but we're speaking about just this one, which also includes schools, where literally according to the bill, a part-time temporary badminton coach could go to the court based on their concern for the child and well-being of the family, whatever their reason is, and start this process. Now, I believe I've represented the bill properly, and I do advise people to look it up for themselves, of course. So I'm wondering, based on that, and I've asked Clifford Crouch about this. I tried to ask Anthony Brindisi about it because they've been in the area. I would like to ask you, why did you vote for the bill?
Just on my colleagues, Mr. Crouch and Brindisi, they both voted for this bill as well.
Yes.
Yeah, which was interesting for me. I think there were 30 no votes in the Assembly on that bill. The context with which this emerged for a lot of us had to do with the stories that we're seeing from across the country. And we were obviously under some pressure to try to respond to complaints that we've had from a lot of people who have told us that New York doesn't currently have a process or a procedure for a court to order a temporary seizure of firearms. Now, for many of us, seizure of firearms is definitely a red flag in and of itself.
Yes, indeed.
But when you see stories from around the country, it's very compelling when people have called and complained and tried to draw attention to a particular individual who, for whatever reason or another, has slipped through the cracks, has not received the services they needed, and is a risk to themselves or other people, and there's nothing that people can do about it.
I just want to mention what you're talking about is, as an example, we're talking about Parkland, Florida, so people have an idea of what kind of cases we're talking about.
So there's nothing that we can do about it unless the person has been either accused of a crime or a family offense already. So we were faced with this set of circumstances. And, to be honest with you, the other bills you discussed with me, they're my own bills. I'm able to discuss the ins and outs of it. I know that we felt the need to do something, to make a statement that, yes, we are sensitive to the fact that there are people out there who are certainly, and now with the suicide numbers going up, a risk to themselves, high numbers, a risk to others. People know it. We want to be able to at least negotiate some reasonable approach to this, which is why we were delighted that we probably had maybe 18 or 20 Republican votes come along with us on this.
You did. Mm-hmm.
Knowing we didn't even have a Senate partner to negotiate a balanced bill, I think a lot of us felt like, all right, we're going to make a statement how important this is, and we hope that the Senate will join us in recognizing we need to come up with something to guarantee due process, to guarantee that a person can appeal, that they can get their guns back in a timely manner if they've received treatment or somehow the crisis has passed. So I think many of us, I looked around the room for those of us who voted against the SAFE Act, for example, and I thought, you know what? We got to make a statement on this. We have to figure it out. Even if it highlights the need for additional mental health services, there are people out there who are crying out for help. And obviously, we don't want any willy-nilly part-time coach, like you mentioned.
Which is under the definition of the bill. It does allow that.
Exactly. And it's not clear to me how many school personnel will take advantage of that. And we want to make sure that it's not done in some punitive manner, that it's really a genuine, legitimate situation. The procedures in that case would have to be very, very well looked after, and the case would have to be very tight in order to be made.
I can tell you from the people I've talked to and reading the bill myself, as well as speaking with several lawyers, as well as also Second Amendment groups, I know that there's a lot of concern because the bill, as written at this moment, and again, it's still in the process, it's still being worked on, it allows for a lot of non-due process, and it's highly restrictive. A lot of people feel that I've spoken to on that side.
Yeah, and that's precisely why we are really hoping our partners in the Senate will come along and really try to negotiate something that everyone can feel better about. I think everyone recognizes the problem. The question is, how do we tackle it?
Absolutely, it's an issue that has
to. I recognize the fact that there are some concerns that have to be worked out, and I'm looking forward to working with Assemblywoman Crouch in particular. He's my colleague. We share Broome County together and working through this. The fact that he voted for that first version of it, I believe he voted against the version with the school component in it. We took 2 votes on this.
Actually, the other way. Yeah, and that was Bill A08976. I didn't include that because we were talking about this final version, as I understand it, is the final version. But he did vote against one version, which I believe was, and I stand corrected. He voted for the original version.
Correct.
And not this version, A11148.
Right. 10 others joined him in voting against it because they felt that it was just probably one too many steps to wrap their minds around. But nonetheless, the fact that he showed support on that first bill, I thought, okay, I had a little bit of a comfort level that we could come to some agreement with the Senate eventually, working with my colleagues. So we'll have to see what happens. Clearly, we've got a ways to go to get to an agreement.
Yes, but again, I always wanted, and that's why I've spoken to your colleagues and yourself to give them the opportunity, because you're right, it's a very important issue, and it needs to be discussed, and people need to hear about it and have an open forum. Much like with the students, and much like with hemp, these are things that get glossed over by a lot of media because they're restricted to 30 seconds or 2 minutes. And it deserves the opportunity to have a bigger voice. And I thank you for giving us more of an understanding of what you're looking at so we can see, we do agree with the concern.
I will add one additional piece to the story to give you the sort of the context. is we probably received as much advocacy on this bill from domestic violence survivors more than anyone else on this. In fact, the original bill was passed as part of a domestic violence package of bills, and that was really the context that we found ourselves in on that one. And exactly at the same time the Me Too movement was being discussed, it was a lot of things coming together to highlight domestic issues, in particular around gun violence. So that just added more to the imperative.
Right. I know 6 other states have passed a similar type of bill. 11 states are considering it right now. Many of them are looking at it either from the domestic violence or from a suicide prevention aspect. But it's always worth having more discussion about that. And I know that's an important one. Now, with that, and I don't know how much more time we have. 5:10. Okay. No problem. And I appreciate the time that you are giving us, especially to speak about all these. Let me ask. It's been a little while since we've talked. And I always, other than seeing you out and about in various events and activities, I haven't had a chance to speak with you directly. You've gotten the new position in the Assembly. You've taken on another chair. And that's something that's very positive, especially for the area, drawing attention to Broome County in the southern tier. How do you see going forward, especially next session, next year? How do you see that being able to be used to help us, or some of the bills that you want to put forward?
You're talking about on chairing the Aging Committee?
Yes.
Well, obviously we're an aging community and an aging state. One of the big focuses that we have right now is creating age-friendly communities. The governor has signed on to become an age-friendly state. The county has applied to be an age-friendly county, a place where people of all ages can age well, and that's kind of how I'm approaching it. We certainly want to make sure that our seniors have the services and the programs they need to live to be as healthy as possible in their own homes for as long as they want. But I've also added a different dimension to the work so that we're not just viewing the elderly as a problem to be solved, but also an opportunity to be enjoyed through mentoring. And also the state is going to be debuting shortly the results of a bill I passed last year, creating a senior tourism program. So that I Love New York, just like they have different segments on their website, will have a segment just for seniors. So if they want to do stay in New York State, which is what we'd like people to do. Maybe they don't want to travel over abroad anymore, or they want to just do something. Day trips, longer trips, where they can get discounts, where people are senior friendly in their hotels and their restaurants. So, I'm trying to come at it from a all age perspective, that we value our seniors, but also we want them to have fun and have a good time in life.
Deserve it.
I must mention, however, that we're going through a big change in the Assembly. A lot of senior members have retired. So while I've been on this assignment for 2 years, I may very well get a new assignment next time. So we'll have to see what happens.
Well, right now you're considered what, third or fifth most powerful person in the Assembly. I know you're bashful and you're.
I wouldn't say that.
Others have said it for you. It's depending on who you're asking, it's third or fifth most powerful.
I wouldn't describe it that way. I would say I'm certainly a respected voice for upstate New York. There's no question around that. I would own that. I would wear that around. Because oftentimes we really do get, we really do have to work very hard to get our concerns on the table. For example, that $20 million for the sewage treatment plant just didn't materialize out of the sky.
No.
That was recently announced. The upstate members worked really hard to create a wastewater fund for those types of improvements because we need them. We need, 10 times that amount of money that we set aside for that sort of thing. But sorry, I took you off the track. But
no, it's all right.
I am very, very passionate on upstate issues.
I know you are, and you know me. We can go into the weeds on any of these, and I pretty much have some idea about it. I do follow it that well. And more importantly, for those who are listening in, if you haven't checked out some of these are great things to learn more about because they affect us all. And that's why we definitely want to talk about them. Let me ask one final question. And that would be, and I always like to end it this way. Is there any issue or subject that I know we've just taken a small cross-section of some of the things you work on, some of the things that are important. Is there anything that I've missed that you would like to share with people right now? Either something upcoming or an issue?
No, well, my leadership position or some of the bills I find myself supporting are all very interesting and a good niche item for a certain group of people, but my focus is almost entirely on economic issues for the Southern Tier. Positioning the Southern Tier, helping the Southern Tier really realize its potential that we've been looking at. We're recovering the cities, recovering our farms. So I'm solely focused on all that. Almost every meeting I take, everything I do, I'm involved with the regional council. We want to make sure that we're getting the biggest bang for the state's bucks. I'm kind of proud of the fact that the aspirations we've had for economic development in Broome County have not been subject to some of the corruption we've seen in other regions.
A lot.
And I think that's because we've stayed in our lane. In other words, we've not bitten off more than we could chew. The projects are deliverable,
right,
manageable, reasonable. They're not $750 million projects that are, that you really wonder, are all the pieces of the puzzle here? So I feel good about what we've done. And the proof is really in the farmers market. When you see the number of producers that are there and the cities that are alive with activity, like last night at the Pops on the River, when you see the new entrepreneurs coming out of the incubator in downtown Binghamton, you really feel like something's really starting to emerge, where people feel like, hey, maybe this is a place where the innovation and creativity that built this place is being renewed. So that's my thing.
It's been a very positive time. I mean, we had thousands, literally thousands, all along out at the Pops at the River, and then we have the Luma Festival, which has now gotten even bigger.
International and adopted now by I Love New York as a featured event, a sponsored event.
So we're definitely seeing a lot of movement there, and we do thank you. I know you've been very involved with a lot of things. For those who don't know, right next door to me right next door to my house, my office and studio, you had worked with that project, a $1.2 million renovation. So it's been very important. No question, you've been very instrumental in a lot of things in the area. And so that's why it's always exciting to have you on and to talk about so many different things. I do thank you for the time that you've been able to give us today and covering all of these different issues. I know sometimes we disagree, but I always love talking to you because I always learn a little bit more on every issue, and I appreciate that.
All right. Thank you. My pleasure.
Definitely. And thank you, folks, for listening in. This has been Michael Voss, Dragon of the Southern Tier on No Soundbites Allowed, and we look forward to seeing you at the next scheduled podcast.